In the great overthrow, they're same as what we going now, but this time they ain't got nowhere to go. It's the same thing.
Right. Was Obama considered black?
Obama was a clone.
But I'm just asking the
He
question, was he
thought,
considered
yes,
black?
he was thought to be black until later
And wait,
on.
let me just say this. His father was African, right? And his mom was white, but she was from where? Where was his mother from?
Hawaii.
Okay. So
Yeah,
which means
but they really don't know because he was
of
adopted.
immigrant. Huh?
Do
He
you
was
know
adopted.
that mixed,
He
being
looked
mixed
was
is a
adopted.
different set of
He
people,
looked like
Yeah.
his
black
father.
people? Did you know that?
No,
When
No.
you
Yeah,
mix,
and
it becomes a
I think
different set of people.
instead of getting into the Obama, the Kamala, there was a bigger point. And the point to be had, Yosef, is when you say facial features, we look the same. We really don't. I can show you my sister-in-laws. I can show you my mother-in-law. I look nothing like
No,
them.
no,
We have
I didn't
similar
say.
color skin, but hold on, Yosef, but we don't look alike. We have different features. So when you say, oh, skin tone, it's hypocritical because this skin tone is all over Asia as well. My same skin tone. But you would say, oh, well, that person looks Asian. So we know they're not the same. So why are you trying to claim us to be African based on our skin tone?
So let me ask you, Dulcinea,
Or
if they
not.
put you in that same space as these same Asians that look like you, would you say you will fit in? You will be what, as in one with them, or
Yeah,
you'll
she
be
could. She could.
no,
Absolutely. My
no.
best friend is
No.
is Indian. My best friend, I grew up with her, and our moms were like best friends as well. And her mom loved my mom. I can't even get into it, but yes. And they used to call her the Indian Miss Parker because she was fine. So yeah, Indians, you can get along with Indians. I think Judge Joe Brown was talking about it one time where he saw some Indians out and he thought he mistook them for us. And but their first thing was like, hey, we're not American. No, we're from India. So they will say, hey, we're different. But Africans say we're different all the time if they're really from Africa.
Mhm.
Look,
I mean, you're
they
very
got tribal.
different,
Listen, in
though.
Africa, on the continent they call Africa now, tribes don't even identify as family until one conquer the other. So how the hell we gonna all identify with somebody that don't all identify as one thing? That's retarded.
And some people are past.
and so Leo, let me stop.
And in peace, Neon B, I wanted to say you look so nice tonight. When we haven't seen you in so long.
I know. She looks so cute.
Ain't no lie, Leon be looking like a snack. Hey.
Let me hold my wild Indian friend back. You can't just be taking all of them, okay?
Mom.
Yeah, so
Hey,
yeah,
I'm
I
all
just have a
y'all.
question.
I'm all y'all.
All right. Yeah, so I just have a question. Because it sounds like we are like at each other. What type of relationship should we have with the people from the land that's called Africa? What kind of relationship should we have?
We should have a free and open relationship, allowing the people from Africa to remain African and the people from America to remain American. We can't force our identity of our tribal heritage or nobody from Africa, and they sure as hell can't force theirs on us. And this is called mutual respect. We was at war with a different group of people that look like the people in Africa, and they look like the people over here, and they ain't none of us. That's why they was invading and conquering all of us. But we not the same people. We do have ties to people from royal families in Africa, marrying people with royal families from the Americas over thousands of years of intermingling, but our root stock has always been here, and that's just us. We was here.
That's it.
Yeah, I agree
And
with
Rob,
that.
let me ask
I
you this.
agree.
At this time that you're talking about that we was marrying this nobility from over there, and they was marrying over here. Was all of these people?
Yeah. Well, I agree that we was all over the world. I actually believe, I can't prove it, but I actually believe that, at one time the planet was a tropical planet and we were melanated. The whole world was melanated at one time. That was one experience, one time, one moment in time. That's what I believe. I can't prove it, but from the stuff that I've been studying, that's just like a theory of mine that this was a black planet. All over the world, we were melanated at one time. But then change happened and a new era came, a shift came, like it's
Well, here
coming
go
now.
the irony to what you're saying is you can
Mhm.
find verification and proof
That's
of
absolute truth.
melanated people who claim their ancestors have always been on every continent.
Absolute truth.
The
Well,
Australians is the only people that said that they migrated from the Polynesian islands to the island of Hawaii. And the genetic record trace that they supposed to have done verified the tribal claim that they migrated across a series of islands that's now underwater that took them to the continent of Australia from the Melanesian people, right?
okay.
So it's the same, the people in the bushes in South America, they say they always been there. They not quite dark as us and they got straight hair, but they ain't Europeans,
Mhm.
right? So when you get to where you got the people in Belize and you start questioning their elders, they're gonna say, really, our people was here long before 1492. The same with the Afro Mexicans. They ain't no immigrants. They organic to the land. And then they amalgamated with people that came by ship and by Bering Strait from Siberia and as the dynasties of China, and from Japan by boat from the imperial dynasties of Japan. And that's all in the dynastic record of the Japanese and the Chinese and how they brought the kings of the land, the many brides on their ships. It's all recorded and it's not hard to find. It's just that the understanding to push the Western narrative is to usurp all organic people, no matter where they at, from the place they organic to. We organic to the Americas, though we may have phenotypical traits of Africa. We might share the common heavy melanin and we might share the common kinky hair. But all of us don't got kinky hair. Some of us is darker than me and their hair is straight, bone straight, silky, with no perm and no straightener. But then you got some that's lighter than me, hair nappy as sheep wool. But we
Yep.
still here. We never went nowhere. The grand delusion is to convince us that we wasn't always here. It don't work on me because I know we was always here.
One more question. So, what's the resolve? I mean, to improve our relationship and to get the truth out. What's the resolve? Is the resolve for us to keep going back and forth with each other, the Pan Africans against the Aboriginals, natives? I'm just, just trying to make a point. I mean, what's the resolve for us to keep going back? What's the resolve? What's the source of the division and the lies, the
War.
miseducation, misinformation? What's the
War was
source?
the source.
Repeat that again. I didn't hear you.
War was the source. All of this is a war that was being fought. After the physical conflict, everybody started resorting to sorcery magic in order to try to one up each other. And now we not in a physical war. We in a bloody spiritual war that's to be fought by conjurers. sorcerers, magicians, shamans, priests. It's no longer left up to the generals, but to the priests to resolve the spiritual inequalities. By resolving the spiritual inequalities, you start to balance the people wherever they at. First, you got to be satisfied to be who you is and where you from, wherever you from, because you can't come into another person's reality and tell them where they from if you don't want them telling you where you from. Right? It's called mutual respect. We come in with the respect, and then we don't have to be put in the place for being disrespectful. And the conflict resolves itself. Africans is from the continent of African, even if they don't call themselves African. Right? We don't mind them people. They can come visit, they can move over here and marry who they want. We always been that way. But don't try to discredit us from being the people from over here being systematically murdered in the street like dogs, executed by the system as innocent men and women and children, and some of us with handicaps, and tell us how we supposed to behave to the common threat. This is the result of that war going spiritual in order to meet the so-called war in heaven that fell on earth. In order to resolve the matter, you have to resolve both. Because as above, so below. If you can't reconcile the spiritual realm, you'll never reconcile the physical realm. The physical realm reflects the work done in the spirit realm. The spirit work is done by spirit workers. No matter what you call them, witches, oracles, priestesses. It don't matter how many of them you try to burn at the stake. We're going to keep coming until we come with a solution. And the only solution is give everybody their own dignity and end the war. Period. If you don't end the war results in systematic divide and conquer in order for the conflict to remain in place. Take away the strategy of divide and conquer, you undermine the ability to keep people at odds with each other when all they got to do is be themselves. You're going to naturally gravitate to the ones like you, tribing up. Pursue your best life and draw down the best energy from the spirit realm. Enough of us do it, we manifest reality of a physical realm that's heaven on earth.
Yeah, I got you.
So the more of us that understand the concept, the easier it is to resolve the conflict. If you can find a reason to see another human child and say, let it die, you need to deal with that issue. Because that energy is what's holding you back from reaching ascension caliber energy. Seeing the system as the game of the gods as opposed to the victims and humanity. Once you start seeing it for what it is, it starts explaining itself to you. Now you don't even need nobody to answer no questions because the universe giving you the answers.
I'm aware. All right, I just want to say one more thing for real this time. Do you think part of the problem is because people just don't know who they are? They're not aware. Our memory. Have you ever seen a movie Paycheck? If you understand that movie, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like their memory has been erased. They don't
It
know who
is.
they. That's a big part,
This was the game.
right? So
Yeah,
do
When
you
but
you
you
think?
guys are
come in
talking
with your
about
memory erased.
you guys are talking
you-
about a game that was played. Basically, this civilization is finished, like you said before. A new game is coming. So therefore, this game here has expired. And therefore,
How
you
you
have
just
to now subscribe to the new game.
how you just gonna
You
cut
dig
off
what I'm
the
saying?
whole subject? But Yosef, how you just gonna cut off the Elder Rod Hayes when he was answering the sister question? She didn't say Yosef. She was talking to to him, bro. Damn, you just cut him off and your mic chopped.
My apologies. My apologies. I just wanted to make a point. That's all. I just.
Go ahead,
All right,
Naomi.
brother. You don't need to go on. You don't need to go on. Let him come in, man. I apologize, please, brother. Come on in.
Mute up.
Do you think part of the healing process is time for people to start with themselves? Maybe people need to start with themselves and trying to, figure to know their self, come to know who they are on their own themselves. Do you think that is
constructive selfishness? You gotta be selfish enough to get you right before you end up healthy enough to take on the burden of helping others. If you don't do the self work, you won't qualify to do the work in the world because you still got self work to do. So it's very critical to begin with the self, right? Because you got to always ask yourself, if you got to make a decision for a group of people and you thinking over the decision, you thinking about how the least and how the greatest of these people are going to be affected by your decision. And then you go through the spectrum and ask, well, how do you feel at each level? That's not a common trait of the current leaders. There's no understanding of the nature of the people you oppressing and giving them no relief. So the knowledge of self is critical to getting to the relief. You have to be selfish enough to do the inner work, to make yourself strong enough to fight the outer fight. It's a fair exchange. The more self-work you do, the stronger you is to do the work for others.
Can I say something to you, Neon B? I think it is really important what you're saying, and I think that's something that we really do focus on in this channel. But the problem is we've all been taught different ways of knowing ourselves. So for instance, if I bring up Sister Freedom and she has to go at some Bible people because they want to believe the Bible in the literal sense, and she's bringing it back to say, hey, this is allegory, so you can know yourself, you can see yourself in the story and fit it. Well, someone that's already believing that there's talking snakes and donkeys and all this other stuff, you can't bring it back to themselves. So I think the problem has been that we quote know thyself, but everyone has a different meaning of what that means to know yourself. And I think the biggest thing for us to answer this question is to know your family. You have to dig into that genealogy. You have to know who you are, where you come from, and then go in order. We talk about we want to take over the government before we take over our community. We talk about we want to take over the federal government before we take over the state. So there's steps to this, and I think trading with Africa is definitely a step, but it's not one of the first steps.
What are we trading with Africa? What do we need from them?
Why are you guys
I would say we could get minerals for them, but mainly we need to be the ones that are in control of our resources, as well as they need to be the ones that are in control of their resources. And then we can discuss what there is to trade, how we can maneuver trade, how we can do imports and exports, different things like that.
So what does America give to the world? I want to ask you, Dawson.
Food, gas,
what kind of food that Africa doesn't have? What kind of food that Africa doesn't have? What food are you bringing us that we don't have? Please enlighten me.
We have the corn, tomatoes, rice.
We have all that. We have all that. So tell me, what are you bringing?
You have all that in the UK? Who's we? You have that in the UK?
Okay, you go.
Because I'm talking about Africans. Wait, are we confused of where you are? Because I can tell you for sure that we could cut out a middleman when it just comes to like what I know of Zimbabwe. We can cut out a middleman in between where they're the other people, the Chinese, the undone people, as Sister Frida called them, all this other stuff, and making billions of dollars in Zimbabwe a year off of American resources. And where we can stop having middlemen, but I don't think that's where we start. I don't think we start there. There's no way we can start there if we're not at a point where we need to be here first.
Yeah, so
We're
you
gonna do
always
it for
start
self.
with
We're gonna do it for self. We're not gonna need you if that's the case. If we're doing it for
Tomorrow,
self.
okay, hold your point, please. Go ahead, Rod.
so that's the reason why we in the current process of restoring who we are on the land, exercising birthright, right? So when he telling us we from Africa and we exercising the birthright that we have to this land, it's a situation where we have to be adamantly against that philosophy that we are from Africa, because we not, first of all, but other than that, we in the process actively of reclaiming the land, and you can't take over at the top. You have to work from the grassroots level. So when the sisters say you got to take our communities back first, right? But you got to have a when you bringing down an old system and you want to try to keep the people as calm as possible, you usher in the new system. Just as one fall, you begin to work in the construct of the new system. Then at some point, the old system comes to an end. Okay, that's not longer working for us. We've exhausted this chapter of misery. We've seen through the waters. Now we come and raise our head to the sky. Now we can see who's who on the planet Earth. We don't have a problem with them people, and we ain't got to solve nothing with them. We got a problem with our